Yo, what's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? Welcome to my first ever live. I'm super excited. As some of you may or may not know, I've never done this before. So I am excited to be experiencing this with you all together. I want this to be interactive. So as you'll see, what's up, William? What's up, my guy? Just put comments and questions you have in the chat. I think this is one of the most exciting parts about doing this live is that I get the chance to interact, engage, and answer and ask questions. And so I have an incredible team that is with me that is going to capture the questions and comments so that we don't miss anything. What's up, Jorge? So make sure we don't miss anything. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited. So I'm gonna let some people come on in here, as they say. I have seen that when people do like these IG lives. I think you guys know I've never even done an IG live before, nor have I done a YouTube live. So this is exciting. I do hear people say, "Come on in, come on in, come on in. Let the people come in." What's up, Adam? Go Blue, baby. Welcome to the newsroom. I am excited for this conversation. This has been a long time coming. So I'm going to explain how this all came about in a really organic way. And it's really because it's you, the audience, that has been asking for it. So thank you guys for wanting to this journey. This is like our soft launch. And so we're going to go heavy in the paint for next week, but wanted to test out the equipment, test out my microphone, test out the settings, check out the gold chain. What's up, Nunya Biz? Thank you, Philly Badass. I appreciate it. Yeah, and I'm not gonna keep you long too neither. The goal of this too is to be short. No more, not too long. I kind of look at this like a lunchtime vibe. You can eat, you can snack. Well, listen to me talk and answer some questions and explain a couple of things, do some deep dive within the policy. So I ain't gonna be with y'all long. This is not gonna be a 2 hour video chat, video moment. This isn't going to be anything crazy, but be quick and informative. That's the goal. And then as we go through this, as we go on this journey together, yeah, I want you guys to let me know what you want, what you're thinking about. I have some topics already I'm excited about. We have some segments that are already moving forward. What's up, Damien? What's up, ACGNZ? Thank you, man. Manny, you retracted your message. What did you have to say, Manny? Shawnee Cooley, Jackson, Mississippi, by the way of Detroit. What up, though? Yo, Detroit in the house. I love that my Michigan folks are already here already. If I can have my team member unlock the iPad, and maybe that way it doesn't keep timing out. That way I can see the questions that are coming up. Thank you, Sony. I appreciate you liking the look. What up? What up? What up? So I'm gonna give it about 3 more minutes, and I'm gonna start. Again, I want to be respectful to the people who showed up at 1 o'clock. So for now, I'm gonna just keep talking in the chat for a bit. Tevin Green, what's up, man? Oh, thank you, man. Happy to have you in here. I love that name, Tevin. Automatically think Tevin Campbell. I'm sure everybody else thinks Tevin Campbell too, with that one too as well. So we'll have some time here. Clearly, you can tell I love engaging with the audience. So I probably just did this just so I can do comments. I'm such an idiot. Who I got in the NBA? Oh, I have that coming up. And I got some thoughts about the Knicks, man, and the head coach. Yeah, so this isn't going to be just politics. It's going to be a little bit of everything. But I have some thoughts about the Knicks, and I apologize for calling you guys delusional on ABC. I got a little bit of flack for that. But listen, I stand 10 toes down, but I am happy for the run. But Adam, what's your thoughts on the coach's firing before I give my thoughts on that? Manny Watkins, yo, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Shamel, what's up? Go Blue. We out here. Shamel, can you imagine? This is so wild to me. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. I'm excited. All right. A few more moments, folks. LM, congratulations. Oh, thank you, LM. I appreciate you from Atlanta. The ATL. Oh, Lisa, what's happening? So good to see you and have you on here. I'm so excited. I'm excited. You can tell I can't stop smiling and my vein is popping out. I have no idea. this damn thing might be 2 hours, but the goal isn't. I'm going to try and keep it linear, keep it concise, and kind of go from there. Yeah, the team is here. We're having fun. We have like, this is our first time doing it. This is like our practice run too as well. So Tonshi, who I hope I'm saying it right, Tonshi or Tanji, but we're going to go with Tonshi. Let's go, Tonshi. What's up? Let me know if I'm getting it right. And if I'm not, if you can do the phonetic spelling, I want to make sure I have. All right. Around 108, I'm going to go ahead and just dive in so we can get this party started. Where else is everyone from? Well, if you're not a Knicks guy, Adam, who are you? Like, what kind of person are you? Huh? What's up, L. Lopez? Excited? Oh, we're about to get into some fun. Tevin's from Texas. That's a cool alliteration. I can remember that. Tevin from Texas. TNT. Damien from Cali. West Side is the best side, so they say. I have no idea. Florida, way too hot in the summer. I try and avoid Florida in the summertime, especially Miami. I'm good with you on the fall. Yeah, give me a nice November, December. I have a lot of folks. I used to have family from Ghouls. I don't know if anybody knows Ghouls down in Miami. Johnson's from Rhode Island. Nice. Rhode Island is not bad. Lopez, Cali, Bay Area. All right. Denver. Tonshi's from Denver. All right, folks, let's just get it. Darius from South Jersey, none of your business. All right, let's go, folks. Oh, listen, welcome to the Muse Room. I am honored to be here with you. As you know, I have the Mike Muse Show on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday on Sirius XM channel 126, and that is going to continue. That's not going to stop. But we were just thinking what's so good about a Wednesday is that so much news is happening on Monday and Tuesday. And so it's really good for us to take a pause and take a midweek break on Wednesday to kind of discuss and analyze what maybe happened over the weekend after the show aired on 2 p.m. on Sundays, and also to kind of look ahead for the rest of the week. And so I can come back with you again on Saturdays and Sundays. And of course, as always, you can find me on ABC platforms. Of course, you can always see on Sway in the Morning, which I'm going to talk about that in a minute here. But the idea for this is just to do a little bit more deep dives, give a little more analysis, and to be a little more nuanced, in particular in the midweek check-in. You can replay this video when we're done, and you can send it around to people. So we'll kind of just live and be in existence. I think you guys know, for me, I am much consider myself a teacher. And so one of the things we were thinking about this show and the wrap around is to really lean into that side of me. And so there's always going to be teachable moments. And so for every show, I'm going to end. It's not so much a call to action, but really about movement building. For far too often, I get so many comments from you guys about call up on the Sway in the Morning show or the Mike Muse show. You guys ask me questions about, Mike, how do I, go about getting this issue resolved? How do I go about advocating for this policy? And so I find myself really teaching, and I'm so honored. And that's kind of what I love to do. I consider more of myself as a teacher than an analyst in anything. And so it's going to be a part of this show where I'm going to talk about movement building. And I have a topic for today that we can all rally around. And then as we go throughout the weeks, you can let me know things you want to learn about that I can address. How this show came about, my dear friend, partner in crime, Kat, have been saying to me for about a year now, is that, Mike, you've got to do a YouTube show. I was fighting it. I was very resistant to it. Chamel's also too saying the same thing. And then Kat got more aggressive over the last couple of months. And so I was like, all right, look, my plate's loaded. I have a lot to do. I don't know if I can have time to add another platform. Then last week on Sway in the Morning, I got done with my segment, and Sway said, Mike, you should have your own show on YouTube. And I was like, I keep hearing this. Tell me more. And he said, I think it'll be really good if the audience can really get the chance to hear you on YouTube, and you'll be able to put out the nuance a little bit more. You can breathe a little bit more with it. And then the other co-hosts, Heather B and Tracy G, got involved, and they agreed. And then the next thing I know, we were all getting DMs about go for it, do it, let's rock. And then we end up creating a call out where the citizens of Sway in the Morning, we call our listeners of Sway in the Morning, our listeners on Sunday morning, we call them citizens. We invited the citizens to come up with the name aspect of it. And this is the name that Heather B actually was able to phrase is the Muse Room. But also two runner-ups that we used was the Muse Minute and the Muse Moment, which I'm going to incorporate within the show. And this is how it was born. It was really affirmed. Cat planted the seed, Sway watered it, and the citizens kept watering it more. And then the DMs went in. And so here we are, folks. So I'm so excited for the Muse Room. I'm so excited to see this platform grow. I'm so excited to grow with you. Most importantly, I want this to be a two-way conversation. So keep leaving your questions and comments in the chat. My team is gathering all the questions that we have. And at the end of the show, it's going to be about 20 minutes, not long, folks. Again, I'll be able to take your questions because that's, for me, that's what I love doing the most. But I'm going to just level set today with the first thing I'm going to talk about is really intersection of geopolitics and AI and technology. You guys know geopolitics is something I love. If you're new to me, welcome. Get ready because geopolitics is something that I'm really passionate about. And also to technology and AI. For far too long, we have so many Americans who, for a long period of time, just was not aware of just how interconnected we were in our global system, right? It was always like, let's isolate ourselves, America first. Let's not engage with other corporations. Let's not give aid to other countries, not really understanding the value of soft diplomacy, not really realizing how the products that we buy comes from overseas and not really understanding until recently tariffs. But this has been something I've really been pushing. In particular, as technology has advanced, we've created much more of an interconnected global society. But I always have felt that people may not have been able to connect the dots with that. I always started off with my TED talk that I gave about 10, 12 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago at this point. My TED talk was that it's time for Americans to engage in our democracy and to make it a form of who you are, right? And because I always said, if not, you are giving it away to individuals in DC to set the policies and to really determine the clothes that you're going to wear. And what did I mean by that, right? I always just think about those Nikes that we love to rock, right? There's a policy that determines, one, how those Nikes were able to get into the United States. Two, there's a policy that was always determined on the cost of what those Nikes were going to be made. And so if you care about the cost of your Nikes, your Jordans, right, your Air Force Ones, you should really pay attention to politics because it's imports, exports, and now we're learning about tariffs. I was also too mentioning leather goods and leather jackets. I love leather jackets and denim. Those are commodities, right? There's an import-export dynamic that comes from that. The manufacturing. How do we manufacture leather jackets and denim jackets to be on the cheap side so that we can afford it? If some of that stuff is manufactured here in the United States, it will cost a lot more than what it does. And what I really love to highlight was something that we haven't talked about yet just as a society is the way that we travel, right? So many of us, like during, the pandemic, went to other countries, especially like Mexico, to Cancun, right, in order for a vacation, right, and to kind of get away. Or a lot of popular destination right now is Jamaica, right, maybe the Bahamas, right. There was a port that was established to get from JFK, from DTW to LAX, to be able to land in Jamaica, in Cancun, in Kabul, right? Sometimes that diplomacy took 10 years in order to establish, right? And so that is why it's important that we understand that in everything we do in lifestyle, right? It all has a policy associated with it that determines how we're able to use and how we're able to exist. So with that being said, I kind of want to turn my attention to Ukraine and Russia. That has been a big topic that has been in the news a lot lately. We've all rocked this together in terms of how to understand Russia and Ukraine. And a lot of times we may not be aware of exactly why that we are why we're supporting Ukraine, right? The idea about that is most important is that Ukraine is right next to Poland, and Ukraine shares a border with Poland. Poland is a NATO nation, and we are part of the NATO alliance. And so if anything was to happen to any NATO country, the other nations have to rally around and engage and to support that other country. The first time we saw that in action was in the Iraq War, when all our fellow NATO allies helped join us in the fight with the Iraq War. And so the idea is Putin has always wanted to reimagine Russia as his former USSR, right? And part of that is to take back Ukraine and to bring it into his vision that he's had to USSR. If this was to be the case, Poland will be right at that border of Ukraine if Ukraine was to be overtaken by Russia. The concern long term of that aspect is we're sending support now, both for military and equipment and financial support. But that could come a time where we have to put our troops on the ground, right? We may have to put our sons and our daughters, our mothers, our fathers, our aunts and our uncles in Poland in order to help protect them. That's what this really soft diplomacy and also to hard diplomacy with military support is really to protect, so that the long range that doesn't happen, right? A stable Eastern Europe is better for the global economy. It's better for normalization. It is better for peace, even within the larger scope of Europe. That is what's really important about that. But we saw something really interesting transpire over the weekend. We've all felt that President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, was pretty much up against a rock and a hard place, right? A lot of us, thought that he was probably losing momentum due to the stalling of conversations with President Trump, as the United States is one of the biggest supporters of Ukraine. But we saw was something very interesting. We saw that he created this attack using technology and drones. What he was able to do was, I think, will be studied in a case study years from now, right? What he recognized was that the weakness of his offense, in part defense, was that he didn't have the equipment that was necessarily needed in order to protect them from Russian airstrikes, right? A lot of that just wasn't in position. Russia didn't think that they had any tools or tricks up their sleeves in their arsenal that would allow them to even reach some of their military bases. A lot of their military bases were deep inside Russia, y'all. Like, and a lot of that was close to Siberia. So there's no way that this little old Ukraine, small and mighty as they are, will be able to reach those military air bases. But insert AI, insert technology, insert STEM. Shout out to all my STEMers out there. They use the technology of drones. Through the use of the drone technology, they were able to infiltrate it through incredible human intelligence, which I always talk about too as well. Be ready for me to talk a lot about human intelligence, in order to position their trucks in position near Russia's military bases, in particular where their fighter jets were positioned. Through a system, they were able to create these trucks that had open canopies that open remotely, again, technology that allowed these drones to fly out of the truck, right? Attached with arsenal and ammunition to fly and to destroy a third of Russia's fighter jets, the fleet of fighter jets. That was amazing. It was so stealth, due to the time that those drones were in the air in position to shoot down these fire jets. Russia wasn't even knowing that they were even being attacked. So it caused lots of damage to Russia's air systems, which again strengthens Ukraine's weakness of positions. Why am I leaning into that? I'm leaning into that because the theater of war looks different, folks. The theater of war just isn't using tanks anymore. It's just not about missiles. It just isn't on the ground combat. I'm not saying that doesn't exist and that won't be part of the theater of war, but as it stands now, it's changing. It's becoming more technologically based and sound. The United States, we've always had this privilege, right? And this privilege in the United States, we've always had to be protected by two bodies of ocean, the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. That's been part of our strength, right? And we've always had a great alliances up until recently with Canada and with Mexico, right? And as a result, we have been able to be secured. We have one of the greatest militaries in the world. I'm sorry, not even one, the greatest military in the world. Shout out to all our military vets and active members right now. And as a result, if any missile was to come over, we'll be able to shoot it down. If any submarine was to come anywhere near us, our subs will attack, no problem. If there are any missiles that we might have trouble tracking, because we have always had such a great treaty with Canada, with the NORAD, we're able to detect those missiles in collaboration with Canada and the United States. We're able to shoot them off from the air. That is just how powerful our military is. But it's also to the power and the strength of our alliances. That's what we've been able to rely on. So it's been so hard for our adversaries to penetrate anything within the United States, right? Obviously, we've seen sleeper cells, right? Obviously, we've seen what happened with 9/11, right? But we kind of thought more of those was a one-off, right? But now what we're seeing with this emerging technology of artificial intelligence, we are moving into cyber warfare, right? We're moving into drones. If Ukraine, small and mighty Ukraine, is able to somehow or another get trucks into Russia, Mother Russia, as they say, one of the most highly skilled intelligence forces in the world with the KGB, bypass all that, get over into their military bases and cause that type of damage. What else could our other adversaries that are much more advanced than Ukraine, China, right? What could they do, right? What could other actors in the Middle East do to as well to cause us just as much harm? I think we need to really pay attention what happened with President Trump's trip to the Middle East recently. Um, and in particular, the way that we are helping to prop up the Middle East and creating almost a Silicon Valley of the Middle East. We know there's a lot of bad actors in the Middle East that would love to cause harm to the United States. The more that we're sending them microprocessor chips, the more that we're having our major tech companies in the Middle East creating research labs, right? The more that we are equipping our adversaries to potentially create AI technology and tools that could cause harm to the United States. And in particular, interesting enough, the Middle East actually has the capital. They are rich, literally and figuratively, in resources. And there's something to be said about this attack on higher learning and institutions and visas and immigration. I'm not even get into that because I want to keep everything linear right now. I will do a deep dive on that. But what we're seeing though is a lot of smart, intelligent people who come from overseas and are who are global international students are thinking twice about coming to the United States. They're possibly now moving over to other countries to study. What a great draw for them to go to the Middle East now, right? Imagine you have all the technology over there now. You have the microprocessor chips. They got the money to fund the research. They have the money to fund the labs. Imagine what could be built over there that could possibly do harm. I'm not saying that's the intention now. Do not misunderstand what I'm saying. But these are the things that we have to be aware of what could be the potential. Now I want to bring that home and tie it into this big, bold, beautiful bill that we have and what we see. The reason I want to create that through line into this big, beautiful bill that we see is because of the amount of money that we are spending on defense in this bill. This bill is roughly $150 billion allocated towards defense. I have a little bit of a breakdown in terms of what does all of that mean. $34 billion will be used for ammunitions. $33 billion will be used for shipbuilding, and $20 billion will be used for missile defense and space capabilities. Folks, where in there is there anything for cyber protection? Where is there anything for using and creating AI tools? Where anywhere is that any conversations about protecting from drones? With this golden dome that President Trump's administration wants to create, that would not have protected us from the drone strikes that were used in Ukraine. The Golden Dome would not have protected us because why? The drones were already here. The Golden Dome is to protect things from coming in. So if you already have technology and systems and sleeper cells and drones, they're everywhere, folks. You guys remember what's happening here in New Jersey last year. That doesn't protect. My concern is United States so focused on traditional warfare that they're losing sight that this is now headed towards cyber and this is headed towards AI and this is headed for technology. And so I believe as a result of us spending the way that we actually are in a potential to make America less safe. Also, too, we're concerned now about budget deficit, right? If you think about it right now, with this current bill as it stands, we're almost adding $4 trillion, potentially, if all goes to plan and get passed, which I don't think it will. I'll talk about that in a second. But if it was to all get passed, we'll create about $4 trillion added to our deficit already. A lot of that is defense spending. Imagine if we were to create better technological tools using AI. I don't have any numbers here. Maybe Stephanie, you can help me out with this, but I think we could half the budget or maybe reduce the defense spending by a quarter. This could actually be cost savings, as well as make an America much more safer and protect us from the vulnerabilities of not just drones, folks, but cyber in ways that can attack our electrical grid system, right? They can create code. This really is just coding, computer science, right? It's just C++ and Python and whatever else can be used. Create some code with somebody who adversary in the dark, somewhere in the corner in another country. Heck, even domestic terrorists that might want to do harm can tap into your electrical company system to take down the power grid in your city, in your state, can take down the financial systems, right? Everything is wired to a technology, to a server. I don't care how protected your server is, it's still wired to a server. And the more technology is getting more advanced, the more that they're able to intercept that and go around it in order to cause harm and to do damage. This is why it's important that we start thinking globally. This is why it's important that we start thinking from a geopolitical perspective. I started out talking about NATO. I went to geopolitics with Russia and Ukraine. I went to the Middle East. But you see, it all comes back to home. It all comes back here to the United States. So this is why it's important that we pay attention to global politics and we stop with this narrative of America first, America isolationist, right? I had this incredible conversations about the why do we care about soft diplomacy. This is it. This is the why, because everything comes back to home. So as we're approaching the midterms, as you're thinking about the next presidential cycle, start asking questions of your candidates about how do they think about geopolitics, right? Now that you, not just through this conversation, but hopefully over the next 2 years, next 4 years, we will be able to become stronger with understanding geopolitics. So now when you hear them answer a question on television, you can say, that's not what I heard in the Muse Room, right? And then that way you'll be more informed. And also, too, use this video to pass it around, share, like, subscribe, right? In order to pass around to your friends. I did mention this budget bill and why I don't think it's going to pass. And here's why. This is my hot take. It's not going to pass in the Senate in its current form. The Senate Republicans can only have 3 Republican no's in order for this bill to go through. If they have a 4th, this bill is dead on arrival. Let's not even forget about if those 3 do vote no, it does pass. They have to go back to the House for reconciliation, and the House is not going to be for anything that the Senate is going to pass. Let's just call that a thing. That's just what it is, right? We heard Marjorie Taylor Greene earlier today say that she didn't even read the bill, but her concern now is AI, so she's not even happy with the bill in its current form. So you already know it's pretty much going to be done on arrival. But here's what I'm looking out for. The reason why I don't think they're going to get it. There's a couple. There's Senator Johnson. He's such a conservative, right? He is all about fiscal responsibility, which is the bedrock of conservatism. That is the bedrock of the GOP, right? For him, this is not fiscal enough. Also, too, with Rand Paul, the exact same thing. But the 2 that I'm looking at is Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, the moderates on the Republican side, in particular of Alaska, right? Alaska depends so much on Medicaid, right? When we think about rural, we always say what's going to be most impacted is rural states, rural counties, and rural communities. When you think about that, those are like traditional rural states like Mississippi, Georgia, I don't know, Oklahoma, Michigan. We got some rural parts too. My original home state. Shout out Michigan. But Alaska, never been. Speaking very ignorant. This is the first time I'm going to speak ignorance, but I qualify my ignorance. I think the rural is even more vast, right? Those cities, once you get out of Anchorage, gets much more distance away from Anchorage, and they're much more rural, and also to the indigenous populations up there. I think if this was to happen, that would impact the hospitals and health systems and clinics that depend on Medicaid and Medicare. I think Murkowski is not going to vote for this. And so I just don't think that the Republicans have enough votes for this bill to pass. But listen, they have a July 4th date that they want this to be all buttoned up, bold, and beautiful. We saw what Elon Musk came out and said, that this is pretty much awful. It's abomination. He went off today. Elon, y'all, is not happy at all. And so we'll see what's going to happen. But what are your thoughts on that? Hit us up in the chat right now. let me know your thoughts and Q&As, and we're going to be taking questions from you all right now. But as the questions start coming in, as we start to populate the questions, I do want to do a couple of hot takes. The Knicks is already in the chat already. I do understand why the Knicks fired their coach. And is it something that I would have done with Tom Thibodeau? I don't know, right? I think it's a hard call. Tom did a great job of giving the Knicks to exactly where they are, right? I didn't think the Knicks were going to get past Boston Celtics, so I'm on record saying that. So shout out to the Knicks for getting past the Celtics. And the Knicks got as far as they've gotten in a very long time because of Coach Thibodeau, but they have yet to still be able to break and get into the finals. And so the question is, you need that fresh energy. I think that's what the general managers and the ownership was thinking. This is one of those things, man, when you got billions of dollars on the table, right? You don't have time for feelings. Right, you don't have time for emotional feel goods, and as great as Coach Thibodeau is, and I think he would land somewhere. I do understand why the Knicks did it, but that doesn't mean it's right. Right. I think they should have gave him one more season. If I could be honest, I would have given him one more season. If he didn't do it, I think he would have been out. To be fair, everyone who knows me knows I go blue so hard. I was the same way with Coach Harbaugh at the time, right? I wanted him to be gone, but other people saw it differently, gave him one more season, and what came out of it? A national championship. I love Harbaugh to death now as a result. And when we got the national championship, he had my permission to leave. So that is my take on the Knicks. I do believe that this finals starting tomorrow is going to be an amazing final series. I do think the OKC has the advantage. I think SGA is just too good. Although Halliburton is a force, Halliburton I think is going to be one of the new faces of the NBA. I just don't think they have enough in them because it was a hard-fought 2 series. SGA's been chilling, legs up, drinking some iced coffee, just waiting. So those knees are rested, and so I think they're going to come out swinging, and they're just so good when they're in action. I do think this is going to be a finals for true NBA enthusiasts. For fair weather fans of NBA, this isn't too much of an exciting series just because they're not big markets, big name, blue chip legacy like the Lakers, right? The Celtics, the Knicks. But for true diehard NBA fans, this is going to be a really great series. These teams play incredible basketball. And for everyone out there who's not into basketball, I'm here for everybody, baby. The Tonys are coming up. Tonys are coming up. You guys know I love Broadway theater. I think we're going to have a battle, folks. The battle that we're going to be watching for is between Audrey McDonald and Nicole Schwartzinger. I hope I got her name right. I always mess her. Scherzinger. That name has bothered me since she's been in the Pussycat Dolls, and I still haven't been able to say it. It's going to be do Broadway select a traditional thespian of the stage, or do they play politics and go with new with Nicole? Nicole brought a lot of energy into Sunset Boulevard, but we'll see what's going to happen with that one. The next thing I'm watching for is what's going to happen with a portrait of Dorian Gray. I had the chance to see that. Incredible. And I think it's a new way of creating inventive storytelling on stage. We're also still seeing that in certain series on television too as well. I'm curious to see if that will be rewarded. It's a one-woman show. She was absolutely fantastic. And I'm also watching for maybe happy ending with the University of Michigan alum Darren Criss and Helen Shue. Go Blue, baby, is up for a nomination. It was an incredible show about love and love law. So that is what I am watching for. And also, too, this really interesting. I want to give a congratulations to Haley and Josh. They got married over the weekend. So is it official? As you know or may not know, Sinners, I did the town hall for the cast of Sinners. And to this date, this is one of my biggest episodes on YouTube. So use this time now after this to go back and find my town hall of the Sinners cast. But what's really interesting about that, a clip got used when I asked Haley a question about passing. That to this day is still one of the most active comment sections that I have seen under anything. The people would not let this conversation go. I think in part to the way that it was clipped, and I don't think it was a bad way. And to the editors who clipped it, I don't think it was bad. but there was a bigger part of the question that got left off when I talked about passing. Right. So she's responding to passing. If you haven't seen this movie, I'm not going to give anything away with this, but her character is passing. For those people who may not be familiar with passing, it's when a person from a marginalized group is able to assimilate and become white, appearing white publicly, and so they're able to move about society as a white-facing person versus being the representative of the marginalized community. And so I thought it was interesting because Haley is has lineage from marginalized communities, that I asked her that question about how to inform her in her role. And her response was brilliant. It was heartfelt. It was nuanced. And so I highly encourage you to watch the whole clip and the whole show so that you can see the larger context of it, right? Because I don't think that the comments are really respecting that. But I have a hot question for you. Y'all going to ask me a question. I'm going to ask you a question too. The question I have for you is, if given the opportunity, would you pass? Right? Would you elect to be white facing and white presenting if you had that ability back then? Think about that time period when people were passing. But also, too, I know a lot of people who are not just Black, who are white facing, who are able to assimilate, and they do move about the cabin differently. It's a very controversial and it's very personal. So let me know, if given the opportunity back then, would you have passed? And or if you are currently passing. If you sit in rooms and you're white facing and white appearing, and conversations come up and you don't identify as anything other but what you are perceived as, do you speak up, or do you continue the silence of that? All right, so I think I want to take a break and just start doing some Q&A. I'm going to switch up the format a little bit, and then I'm going to come back with some takeaways on movement buildings. I have a topic, and that is education and what to do to get your curriculums into the space. So many of you always ask me about education. You want books in your kids' school. And so I'm going to show you guys and really teach you on how to create a movement in order for that to happen. The first question is from Gregory. Gregory says, and keep the questions coming in. Gregory says, what midterm elections should we be looking out for? And what about special elections? That's a really great question, Gregory. I'm glad you asked that. And just so you know, I don't even know the answer. I don't know the question ahead of time until the iPad flips around. So there's no time to prep for anything. I think that it's time that we stop focusing on that special election, right? Honestly, I think that we just need to get in the habit of going to the ballot box every single year. Because even right here in New York City, we have our primary coming up in June to elect our next mayor. And because New York City is a majority Democratic city, whoever wins a primary is essentially going to be the winner, right? And so it's important that we start getting to the habit of just going to the ballot box every fall, right? And being prepared for that. But think about this too as well. Local matters to me, right? I care a lot about local news. I'm a big proponent of local journalism. Local elections matter. Your school board matters. Your city council matters. We don't pay enough attention to city school board, and y'all are so mad at me all the time because something's happening in your child's school system that you're just angry about. But that's because y'all don't go to school board meetings. I said it. You don't go, flat out, right? And then you don't vote for school board members. Who's the last school board official that you voted for? I'll give you 3 seconds. You can't remember because you didn't do it. That's the only time I'm going to be really directive and mean at y'all, right? But y'all don't vote on these school boards. You don't vote on city council meetings. You don't go to city council meetings, but you're so mad about everything. So that is why we have to stop just focusing on the president. We have to stop focusing just on the Senate, and we have to stop focusing just on the House. What really is important to focus on too is your state legislators. Your state legislators have so much pull in your state for resources that you have. The governor really matters, but the state legislators matter. If you have the right balance in the state, it could be an aid to your governor, or it could be a block for a governor that you may see as adversarial to the things that you care about. And so I think to answer that question succinctly is start paying attention to every election. Be ready to vote. I want people in the Muse Room audience, I want us to be the most informed voters out there, the most active voters out there. We don't wait for special elections. We go every November, every fall. Deal? All right, let me see some thumbs up for some deals. All right, next question is coming from Jorge. What do you know about the Chinese guy? I love how you have to talk, but keep it. Don't edit. Let me just stop right there. Your questions do not have to be worded perfectly. I don't care about grammar. What I care is about engagement and you participating in your democracy. I feel like for far too often, people do not engage in democracy because they feel like they don't have a college degree. They feel like they may not have a fancy job. They may not wear fly gold necklaces, right? But that's just not true. And because of that, I believe this is why we're in the state that we're in our democracy, where we have opted out. So I don't care how your sentence is. Just give me your best shot. And you hear me chuckle, it's because I'm enjoying this. All right. What do you know about the Chinese guy who got caught bringing in bacteria, possibly to attack our agriculture? So those who know me know I'm very honest about things I do not know. And I think that helps build trust. I do not know anything about this Chinese guy who brought things in. I will research this, Jorge, but if you want to send me a link of something, then I'll look into it. But I'm able to extrapolate something out of this that ties into what we're saying earlier, right? What you're saying is there's some Chinese guy who got caught bringing in bacteria, possibly to attack our agriculture. That's what I mean about warfare is looking different, right? If this is true, if this is the case, as I said before, warfare is no longer just missiles, right? It's just no longer submarines coming, right? It's drones, but it's also too people using chemical agents, right? In order to attack, right? And really to attack, if this is true, I have to keep qualifying it because I don't know, but if this is true, the agriculture is such a big part of the American economy, right? Farmers, we think about farming, right? I think a lot of us who are not really familiar with agriculture and how agriculture is such a big business here in the United States, we think about agriculture as just maybe like farming as like 2 horses, 5 pigs, 4 cows. Nah, bro. Agriculture and farming is huge in the United States. So if they're able to bring back bacteria that could impact, the animals that are there, that can have huge consequences. I mean, bird flu, anybody? Right? And so that's just something to think about. This is why our eggs are so expensive. All right. Next question is from Samel. Do you think the Trump administration should drive investments in AI with the development of data centers? Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I think that data centers are going to be so important. And Shimon, I'm really glad you brought that up, is because Gregory, I'm gonna tie you into this too as well. You talked about, what should we pay attention for? My concern with politicians and technology is that technology is happening at such quick and fast rates of innovation that elected officials are still working in the traditional timeline of how bills get passed and legislation gets passed. Sometimes bills take 5 years, maybe, right? But it doesn't happen immediately. By the time a bill trying to regulate tech or advanced tech gets through, we're already to the next iteration of 4.0 of that technology, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind to consider. The second thing is that we have to, in order to start building more data centers, we have to change up the way that the permitting structures are done. As of now, it takes so long to create permitting within the United States, good or bad, like it or not, that's just is the case. We have to expedite the permitting aspect of it in order to get these data centers up and running quicker. Because y'all, let me tell you, India does not care about permitting and guidelines and taking 5 years. China does not care about permitting and guidelines and taking 5 years. The reason why I said that, in the Middle East, for sure, does not care. Those are our potential adversaries, right? Who are really advanced in technology and really advanced in the AI race. So as they're building quicker data centers, as they're building more quicker technology, the US tech companies can be hamstrings. Take your emotions out of it. I can hear y'all already. The billionaires, they're too rich, they're too powerful, too big. Whatever you feel, all good. Yes, and China don't care. China is building and creating, right? They're creating the AI systems. AI, I'm glad I said that. Thank you, Shamel. Again, AI is just not America product. We got to wake up, people. It's just not for Americans, made by Americans in America, right? AI is a global technological asset, right? And we have to think about that. How can we become just as competitive, safe, and regulatory as well? I'm not saying have no regulations, but that's just something to keep in mind. The next thing, Shimon, to answer your question. So one, I talked about permitting. Two, I talked about how to make policy much more quicker and legislation much more quicker. Three, we have to talk about new energy sources. Nuclear, I said it. I know you're mad. I get it. But the way our electrical grid system is set up right now, we don't have enough energy to scale the technology that we need in math. So that is that. I have a question from Shani. What up, Shani? Oh, you have a comment. Not even a question. Oh, you have a comment about assimilation. All right, folks, let's go. Shani says, people often believe that one of my parents is white, but my fair skin goes back to my great-great-grandfather. I don't think I'd want to pass. I'm a proud Black woman. Cheers to you, Shawnee. That is really the question that a lot of people had to ask themselves back in that day, right? And I don't think we can judge people who were in those shoes, right? I think that's a personal choice that everyone has had to make. And I think people who have chosen to pass, I don't necessarily think it was an easy choice for them to have make and to make. But I think that's just something of interesting. My good friend Aaron told me a story that his assistant one day said to him, Aaron, you don't know what it's like to be in an Aaron's black. You don't know what it's like to be in an all white room because your mere presence alone, it doesn't make the room all white. So you can't hear what they're saying. So I've always thought that was really interesting when we talk about rooms dynamics and things of that nature. But yes, just want to add that in there. All right. So I'm going to go on to the part of our conversation where our takeaways, right? And our takeaways as I begin to in the Muse Room. What a fun time we've had. I have thoroughly enjoyed you guys. This has been fun. This is exciting. I didn't know what we're going to go in the direction. And we actually stayed on longer than I thought, which is at 146. That's what's up. The takeaway I want is it's kind of what I created the system on Vote Quadrant. Vote Quadrant at the time was a singular voting system that was used to stop police brutality and stop killing. It was a system I created of how to elect judges, district attorneys, nominate the right police chief and mayors to work in concert with each other to help prosecute police officers who've done wrong and harm in the way that I thought that it would influence brutality. And so many people use it to this day, and so many people are using it for other reasons. That's how I think systematically about how do we solve for issues. Like, I think all things matter. Marching is important, protesting, all the things are important, but we have to think strategically too about our voting and to vote for what we want. And so the number one question I always get is about curriculum. Somebody wants a book to be part of the curriculum. Something isn't being taught in their child's school, right? And they always ask me like, what can be done? Most important thing I want to let you know is the Department of Education does not create curriculum. I repeat, Federal Department of Education does not create curriculum. So let's throw that out there. The second thing, it goes back. I'm going to throw in digital literacy, right? We need our K through 12 public school system to have a digital literacy program, K through 12. And we need our public school system to have technology, computer science, coding courses, K through 12. Right? That's I'm tying it into the beginning of the show. We're talking about AI and technology. How do we do that? One, it starts with you all running for a school board. Yeah, I said it, running for school board. These school board officials, you guys think every time you guys call up, you guys think these are some mythical people who went to some college and got their PhD in being a school board official. No, it's just somebody in her neighborhood thought that they could do it, raised about $500, got about 200 votes, and now is determining what your kids are reading. It really is that simple. Two, go to if you don't run, fine, go to the school board meetings, right? But make sure you vote for the right school board, and then find out and work with your local newspaper and your local news station, force your school board members, candidates to have a town hall at the local gym, the local community center, the local park, the local mom and pop coffee shop. I don't care. Force them. Ask them these questions, right? The next thing is to think about too, after you do the school board of education, is to think about your gubernatorial candidates, the governors. When they come to your town hall, when they come to a town hall, when they come to your church, don't even get me going with that. That's a whole nother Muse Room conversation. When they come to your sorority meetings, fraternity meetings, your 4K, was a 4F club, whatever thing they come to, right? In your town fairs this summer, ask these governors, how will they think about the school board members? Some school board members are appointed, and then state school board members. Some state school board members are elected, and some state school board members are appointed. Ask them specific questions about how are you thinking about digital literacy within our state, right? How are you thinking about ensuring that there is digital literacy in STEM for K through 12 public school kids? How will you think about state school board members that you're going to appoint that is going to be in charge of our state's curriculum? It really is that. So if you care about digital literacy and learning coding and STEM and AI for your kids, K through 12, it starts with running for school board, going to school board meetings, interviewing these gubernatorial candidates, going to the town halls, ask them questions specifically about this, and ask them questions, what will they do and how will they allocate the budget? and then ask them how would they appoint state school board officials. If some of your states, if they're elected, you need to question them in the same way you need to question the local school board officials. Go to the meetings if you can. They always have their minutes up on the websites. Pull it down, make yourself involved and engage. And if you don't care about digital literacy and technology, if you care about a certain book that you want to have in your kid's school, whatever your issue is around education, use that system and that formula. All right. So just to recap, you can pin this, you can send it to somebody because it can be applicable to so many other ways. Run for school board, go to school board meetings, interview the gubernatorial candidates that come to your church, community centers, ask them questions about how they allocate the budget. How are they thinking about this? And then how are they thinking about appointing state school board of education members? All right. Yo, this has been so much fun. I have enjoyed it. I've had so much more fun than I thought I would. So thank you, Kat, for putting the seed in my head a year ago. It has now been watered. Thank you, Sway, Heather B, Tracy G. Thank you all, the citizens of Sway the Morning. Thank you to everyone who listens to the Mike Muse Show. Thanks for everyone who rocks with me on ABC. I just thank you guys all for pushing me to get here. This is so much fun. I can't wait to see where we go with this and what we do. And if you like it, keep liking, keep subscribing, and tell a friend. Watch this back on replay. It's going to be posted immediately. And pass this around. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep leaving your comments. Also, you can always hit me up at I am Mike Muse, MUSNSAME on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. So until next time, folks, peace. Gonna end the stream.